seated.
Madam Speaker, I am proud to stand up and speak on the Appropriation Bill 2019-20, as this government is once again demonstrating that the progress of the country and the quality of life of our people are its sacrosanct mission. I congratulate the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance for presenting yet another caring budget that addresses each and everybody's concern, both on the social and economic fronts. Those who criticize from the other side, and we listened just now, a moment ago, saying budget électoraliste. Now, if he had been in our shoes, what sort of budget you would have brought? And then, fella was do. Well, he's feeling the sweetness in his mouth. He should be happy. Budget 2019-20 is strongly anchored in the philosophy that puts the economy at the service of the people. Madam Speaker, this is the last time I'm speaking in this House on an appropriation bill, since I have already publicly announced that I will not be standing as candidate at the next general elections and will retire from active politics thereafter. I believe that every time I have spoken during the debates on the budget, even when I was leader of the opposition, I have put the interests of my country first. The Hansard is there to identify. Now, I was really surprised when members on the other side, especially Honorable Ramphal, who is a barrister, criticizing the Prime Minister concerning the Commissioner of Police, that he is not taking his responsibility, he has done nothing, he should have dismissed the Commissioner of Police. I feel ashamed to hear such things from a barrister. He should know the principle of presumption of innocence. He should know that when somebody is prosecuted and found guilty, then the question of dismissal arises. But here, they read nonsenses in the newspapers, they listen to all sorts of rumors, and I consider it very irresponsible to base oneself on such information and come and attack the Prime Minister, which I consider an insult to the Prime Minister. From the very beginning, when I heard about this case of Brass, I have inquired and I have tried to know exactly what happened in this case. And let me tell you, on 25th of August 2016, at Grand Bay Police Station, Mr. J. Brass reported that on 10th of August 2016, he had lost or dropped his Mauritius passport during a trip from airport to his place of residence. On the same day, he submitted an application for a new Mauritian passport. On 5th September 2016, during the course of an inquiry, the divisional commander, Northern, sent his interim report to the Commissioner of Police respecting a request from Mr. Brass for the issue of a Mauritius passport to allow him to travel to Réunion Island urgently to bring back his speedboat, which was under repair thereat. The report reached the office of the Commissioner of Police on 8 September 2016. On 13 September 2016, the Commissioner of Police, as a routine for all such reports, referred the interim report to the Passport and Immigration Officer for necessary action as per established protocol. Subsequently, on 17 September 2016, the Passport and Immigration Officer, under the authority conferred upon him by virtue of Section 3 of the Passport Act, issued Mr. Brass a restricted Mauritius passport with the condition that same would be surrendered on his return to Mauritius. Pursuant to Passport Act, the Passport and Immigration Officer is the sole decider to issue or refuse the passport. On the same day, Mr. Brass used the Mauritius passport to travel to Réunion Island, and on his return, on 29 October 2016, the passport was impounded at the SSRIA immigration desk. The passport is still in possession of the Passport and Immigration Office. At the time Mr. Brass submitted his application for a new Mauritius passport, as well as when he traveled to Réunion Island, he had a clean record. His name was neither borne on ATSU records for any drug trafficking, nor on the PIO controversial list. As per records kept at the Police Crime Records Office and Police Prosecutor's Office, he was neither borne on the criminal records, nor was he on bail for any criminal offense. It is obvious that in November 2016, Mr. Brass had traveled to Réunion Island on his own, clandestinely, without informing the Passport and Immigration Office. When he was arrested during the night of 10th November 2016, he was a clandestine traveler, having no traveling document in his possession. I am further informed by the Commissioner of Police that he had never received nor made any phone call in relation to the case, nor has he given any instruction to issue or not to issue the passport. When it's such a case, how do you expect a responsible Prime Minister to dismiss a Commissioner of Police? If you ever become Prime Minister, you do it, please. But we are not. Madam. National budgets, Madam, as we are all aware, are the drivers of a country's social and economic development. They pave the way for the advancement of a nation. All the budgets that have been presented during the 18 years I have been Prime Minister were geared towards building a better Mauritius, and I am proud that my governments delivered accordingly. History is there to testify. The last 4 budgets, which bear the imprint of Honorable Praveen Jagnnath, have demonstrated the Prime Minister's vision and determination to build a strong, modern country with inclusiveness as a sacred mantra. The Prime Minister is sparing no efforts to satisfy the multiple needs and exigencies of the population, while gearing the country towards new heights of development. He has been dedicating every single second of his mandate to the service of the country. We have to heartily congratulate him for that. He deserves it. Madam Speaker, the 29-20 budget has been widely acclaimed by the population. The different social partners, including trade unionists, the firms of accountancy professionals, and business Mauritius. The positive comments that have been registered speak volumes of the boost in feel-good factor and confidence triggered by the budget. Madam Speaker, while trade unionists, the honest ones of course, are expressing their appreciation with regard to the numerous measures announced in favor of the working class, the former Prime Minister has qualified those measures of solution Panadol. He has always Panadol in mind. He dreams of Panadol. And because, as a doctor, he tried to prescribe Panadol all the time, he was most unsuccessful as a doctor, and finally he thought he should change his profession and go and study law. But even as a lawyer, he has been nil because I've never heard him take a case in court. This shows that the former Prime Minister is living in his own phantasmagoric world. Perhaps when speaking about Panadol, he was thinking of the sexual stimulant pills that were discovered in large numbers in his coffers. But the people of this country are in no trance. They view the comments of the former Prime Minister as an insult. And I agree with them. Because they have not forgotten that the government of Navin Ramgoolam during 2005 and 9 period have prescribed quinine pills, not to sell Lizol, to the population with a series of taxes that were introduced and the massive depreciation of the rupee that impacted heavily on the prices of the commodities. The population was fleeced to the bones, while people in government at that time and their cronies were fattening their pockets unduly. And yet, they were repeatedly saying that there was no other alternative. That was another Panadol. I hope people have not forgotten that the then government went as far as deciding to remove that piece of bread that was given in primary schools. They decided to abolish subsidies on rice, flour, and school certificate and HSC examination fees. They concocted a dodgy mechanism to deprive workers of their dues in terms of salary compensation. Madam Speaker, had it not been for the arrival of Honorable Praveen Jagannath in government in 2010, our fellow citizens, many, I'm afraid, would have starved. Because from the time of independence up to 1982, the Labour Party, in coalition with PMSD, although PMSD was against independence, they governed the country. MMM took power in 1982. And what did we inherit? An almost bankrupt country. Everything, everywhere, all sectors, even the MBC, the Rosebel, Sugar State, all were heavily indebted. Public debt, today they speak of public debt. They should know what heritage they left. Always labor and PMSD together. There was not money even to import food. There was only for about 10, 12 days. And we came 60-0 MMM PSM at that time. What the people were told, patat. And it was not a joke, it was serious, because there was no money to buy food. And in those days, IMF World Bank was putting pressure on us that we should abolish the welfare state, that the country was too poor. It could not afford such a luxury. They call it a luxury. And many of my friends told me, but what other option we have? Meaning that IMF World Bank is going to help us financially, and therefore we must do what they ask us. If I had not been there, people today, they criticize us, they talk so much. The welfare state would not have existed today. I stood up against IMF World Bank. I told them, and I told my friends, we have been elected by the people. We campaigned, we criticized the Labour and PMSD government, asking them to see in what state they have left the country. And now we come, we said that when we come, we are going to better your situation. And now we come, we take away the welfare state. What does that mean? People talk of poverty today, the utter poverty that existed in those days. My friend Béranger should know about it. Many others may not because they are newcomers. And the Labour and PMSD people of those days declared to be blind. They could not see the reality. But I said, so long I am going to be the Prime Minister, I am not going to accept that. Finally, I told IMF World Bank, give me 3 years. If in 3 years I don't change the situation, you will impose harsher conditions. I will agree. They laughed because they were convinced that we were going to be doomed. But I must confess that I took such stand only because I believed in God, that God was going to help me. And I, afterwards, went around countries to invite people to come and invest in our country, because most of the sectors were almost dead. Today we are being criticized. Today we are living in a world where there is a recession internationally almost. We all know in many countries what is happening. But I invited investors from all the countries wherever I had been to come and invest, and especially in the textile industry, I asked them not to concentrate only where previous government has concentrated in one spot in the town, to go around the country and open everywhere textile mills. And in fact, they did so. But while going around, I arrived in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, while discussing with the responsible people, they wanted to know what is the position in Mauritius. And I had to tell them the truth, in what difficulties we had found ourselves. That people were going to starve by thousands without food. They were surprised. And then they told me that, Taiwan has got excess of rice. And they are going to throw it all in the sea. I was surprised. I said, why throw in the sea? They said, because the Americans were financing them, and the Americans insisted that they should be thrown in the sea, not to put on the market. It was going to spoil the price of rice. When I heard that, I said, look, rice is going to be thrown in the sea while other people in other countries may be starving without food. I had to make a choice. I know. We always honor and respect agreements that we make with our countries. We had an agreement with Communist China that we recognize only one China, Communist China. We should have nothing to do with Taiwan. We were not even allowed to visit Taiwan, to go as a tourist in Taiwan. Then I thought to myself, what will I do now? When putting everything in balance, I decided to go secretly, try to bargain with them, and try to get the rights to save the situation in my country. Secretly, I arrived there. We had discussions. But it was not easy, because they were insisting that we should recognize Taiwan as a country. We should allow them to open an embassy in Mauritius, and that they would not only give the rice free, but they would help us economically in many other fields, in many other sectors. Discussion, then I finally told them, look, put yourself in the place of Communist China. And Communist China were in your place right now, and asking me to do what you are asking me to do. And if I were to do it, how would you feel? Would you be happy? They could not answer. They kept mute. Then finally I told them, look, embassy, no embassy, what difference will it make? Chinese people from China are doing business with you. Your people are doing business with China. Why can't we do business? And I said, you come and open a trade office, and you will do your activities, whatever. I won't mind. I had to say that because I wanted that rice at all costs. Then, finally they said, okay, we agree, but on one condition. I said, what is that condition? They said, when we'll have celebration of our national day, we will invite you. Will you come? Of course, I answered them on the spot, yes, I'll come, why not? I'll come, I'll have a drink together with you. We'll chat for a good moment. And then I will leave because I told them I also have a condition. They asked me, what is that condition? I said, I will leave, and in my presence there should be no official speech, and there should be no toast. I said, you do all that when I will have left. They agreed. And that's how we got, I forgot exactly 4 or 5 shipments of rice conveyed to us without spending a penny, a cent. And the rice was better rice than what ration rice we were receiving before. I must say it was God sent. That saved the situation and helped us a lot to get out of the mess in which we found ourselves. But of course, after some time, this came to be known. My good friend, Béranger, was then leader of the opposition. He put me questions. But obviously, I told him the truth, what happened. Well, he made all sorts of remarks and ultimately said that what I did was immoral. I said, would it have been moral if I had allowed my people by thousands to starve and die? I said in the House, I don't believe in that sort of morality. And what they did outside, they campaigned, Jagannath does not believe in morality. Well, that was not right. And you know, I was invited afterwards by Communist China on an official visit. I went there. I met ministers. I met the president. And after discussions and all that, I was going to leave. And they didn't put me any question why I went to Taiwan. I raised the question. I told them, look, I must explain one thing to you. I had been to Taiwan. Maybe you know by now. But in what circumstances? It was to save the life of many of my people. They told me, why do you raising this? We understand very well exactly what happened. You should not worry about that. And you know, since then, the respect that the Chinese have had for me, even up to this day, among many Chinese, I'm very popular in China. So, people with some common sense do try to understand that in certain circumstances, you happen to be forced to take certain decisions. But the Chinese knew that I respected the agreement. We have not recognized Taiwan as one country, independent. We have not allowed them to open an embassy. But trade, of course, even the communist Chinese were trading Taiwan. So there was nothing wrong in that. That is why I say, if Pravin Jagannath had not been in in government in 2010, our fellow citizens would once again have perhaps met the same situation and starved without food. I'm serious about that because already vulnerable people fell in the hell of absolute poverty. I invite members of this House to have a look at the budget presented by Honorable Jagannath in 2010. He reviewed those Labour PMSD cruel recipes and relieved the population from the excessive burden that was imposed on them. I wanted to mention that because sometimes people forget, I say to my fellow citizens, beware of the words of deceit. The carnivorous lion cannot be trusted. He feasted abundantly during 3 Mondays, leaving others in dire need and desolation. May, by God's grace, Mauritius be spared from that beast. You know, his late father, on many occasions told me, and not to me alone, I know he had told others who were close to him, pas les navines faire politique, Zuli pour faire politique, ça même pour plus grand malheur à ce pays-là. Well, who can know his child better than a father? And if a father says such thing concerning his son, in all honesty,
It's not fair. Member of the House.
It's not a point of order. Order, please. Order. Honorable Sudan. Order. There should be, I would appeal to honorable members to have a certain element of courtesy amongst each other. But that's not a point of order. Honorable Boulel, that's not a point of order. There's nothing unparliamentary. Honorable Boulel, please. Honorable Sudan.
And Nabiram Ghulam, during all the time he has been at the head of government of this country, where he has taken this country has proved the father right. Madam Speaker, let me now come to the arguments of the leader of the opposition, which smack of dishonesty. He said this government failed with regard to economic growth. I believe the failure is on his part because a school child can easily ascertain that 3.9% growth this year is far better than 3.2% realized when the leader of the opposition was Minister of Finance in the previous government. Let me once again remind Honorable Jiva that in his 2013 budget speech, he assertively announced a GDP growth of 4%, which never materialized. And he shows finger at us. He should let him look at himself in the mirror first. Confronted with the reality, he stated in his 2014 budget speech that our economy is expected to expand by a good 3.2% in 2013. For him at that time, 3.2% growth was a major achievement. Today, he dares to criticize us when we are delivering 3.9% growth this year and more in the coming fiscal year. If it is not dishonesty, what is it then? The population can make its own judgment. Madam Speaker, This government inherited an economic situation that was plagued with crisis in every sector. Confidence in the economy was at its lowest. And to add to that was the BAI time bomb and the difficult international context. With a series of bold and avant-garde measures, this government instilled a new confidence in the country and economy. Vision 2030, which is often quoted on the other side, which I presented in August 2015, indicated our vision and targets, not for the term in which we were serving, but for the medium and longer term. Just like Gilo Venkat said, in the first term, what work is being done about Gilo? Would you have realized Venkat said? Be honest. The 2016 budget unleashed a new era of economic development that leverages on business facilitation, modernization of infrastructure, and innovation. The vision and pathway of the economy was set at that time. Today, when I hear some members relating that the budget has no direction, I will say they are wrong, and that they must be looking at the wrong direction themselves. Obviously, this year's budget is a continuity of our economic and social policies. The new challenges of the moment have been adequately addressed, and that is confirmed by Business Mauritius in its comments to the budget. The progress achieved by our country on the economic and social front is recognized by international rating organizations. Indeed, Mauritius is first in Africa and 20th on 190 countries on the World Bank doing Business 2019 Index. Mauritius ranks first in Africa and the Forbes survey of best countries for business in 2019 and 39th among 161 countries. Mauritius ranks first in Africa and 83rd out of 230 countries on the Mercer's Quality of Living survey. And last but not least, Mauritius ranks first in Africa and 40th out of 133 countries on Social Progress Index. These are only a few of a long list where the achievements of Mauritius are praised. Madam Speaker, I have heard some people, including members of the other side of the House, affirming that with this year's budget, of course, it was repeated this morning, peut faire la bouche doux. Others are saying it is a budget electoralist. I must say, to me, these are false and deliberately misleading statements. Since his first budget presented in 2004, Honorable Pravin Jagannath has been systematically putting the people of this country first. He has introduced myriads of measures to support the vulnerable and improve the purchasing power and quality of life of this population. During the present mandate, social measures have been announced and implemented. From the very first week after this government assumed office. Election or no election, the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, has remained true to himself and to the socialist philosophy that puts the people first. If improving the lot of the population, budget after budget, is fair labus due, then the Prime Minister must be congratulated. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister could have waited this year's budget to introduce minimum wage and negative income tax. For example, if he wanted to get political mileage, he acted otherwise. And what motivated him was his willingness to give the best support possible to those who deserve it. He did not wait for elections to do that. Today, in our country, no full-time worker or employee earns less than 9,400 rupees. Is this solution Panadol? And Labour and PMSD government, during those 9 or 10 years, had they ever thought of this? You know how much people were working for monthly? 1,500 rupees. And today, they have the guts to criticize this government for what we have been doing and achieving. Is this nothing, as some want the population to believe? At least we should be honest in this House. We must acclaim those measures that improve the lot of the people. Madam Speaker, for the records and for everybody to recall, it is worth highlighting that from December 2014 till the budget was presented on 10th June 2019, this government has put, as has been pointed out by my friend Nandu Buddha, 89 billion rupees of additional revenue in the pockets of households. 89 billion. Has the previous government, Labour and PMSD, ever done, ever achieved this sort of thing? This has been done through, 1, increase in basic retirement pension and other basic pensions. 2, salary compensations well above inflation rates, including across the board salary compensation of 600 rupees with effect from 1st January 2015, 360 rupees with effect from 1st January 2018, and 400 rupees with effect from 1st January 2019. Introduction of a subsistence allowance since 2017. 3. 4. Introduction of the negative income tax and national minimum wage in 2018. And 5. Implementation of the PRB in 2016. Obviously, the 89 billion rupees is a cumulative figure for December 2014 to June 2019 period. This represents an increase of more than 35% in real purchasing power after providing for cumulative inflation rate for the period which stood at 12.4%. Is that nothing, as some want to make us believe? I leave it again to the population to judge. On the other side of the house, I hear very often people saying, "Premier ministre, in vin ministre par l'imposte." People never voted him as Prime Minister. Well, I really feel ashamed to hear people who were supposed to be intellectuals representing the people here in this house coming with such argument. Do they pretend not to know that when people go to vote, they don't vote a minister, they don't vote a prime minister, they vote the candidates who are in their respective constituency as members of parliament. Now, how someone becomes prime minister? It's according to the constitution, to our laws. It's the president who appoints the prime minister. And he is bound to do so, appoint someone who commands a majority in the House. Therefore, when I left, the only person who commanded the majority in the House was Praveen Jagannath. And no president could do otherwise than, according to our constitution, appoint him as prime minister. There have been about 3 cases in Supreme Court. They all lost their cases. But even then, in the opposition, they keep on coming with same argument. Well, to me, that is not honest at all. Madam Speaker, now with the announcements in the budget, there is more to come for households in terms of purchasing power. Only for basic retirement pension and other basic pensions, an additional 900 million will be disbursed in the next financial year. With a decrease in the prices of LPG, mogas, and diesel, the population will be saving as much as 1.5 billion rupees in 1 year. That will add up to the disposable income of families. Madam Speaker, I heard the leader of the opposition saying that the government has failed on the employment front. Nonsense. Official statistics show that the unemployment rate was 8% in 2013 when the leader of the opposition was Minister of Finance. Today it has fallen to 6.9%, the lowest since 2001. Again, a school child can ascertain that 6.9% is better than 8%. And we cannot compare the leader of the opposition with a child. But he seems to be worse than a child. The leader of the opposition stated that only 12,000 jobs have been created in the last 4 years. That again is not true. Only in the public service, there have been 14,800 new recruits. In the private sector, it is estimated that an average of 15,000 jobs have been created yearly in the years 2015-2018 period. Also, I would like to remind Honorable Jiwal and also Honorable Mohammed that during the 2005-2009 period, the then Labour PMSD government was boasting of jobless growth. It means what it means. They were proud of delivering jobless growth. Today, they have to teach us lessons. Madam Speaker, some people complain about unemployment when we have more than 40,000 foreigners working in our country. The inference to be drawn is that, unfortunately, Mauritians do not want to do many of the jobs that are being done by foreigners. You know, maybe it would be good that I mention to the House that after 83, when new inventors came in the textile sector, mills were being opened around the country. People were queuing in front of our doors, begging us to favor them, to make them have jobs. Why? Because then they were in utter poverty. They would do any job. But today, everybody who comes to see me for a job wants a white-collar job in the public service, in parastatal bodies. Nobody wants to go in the private sector. Well, we must ask ourselves why. Madam Speaker, I also heard Honorable Mohammed saying on a private radio that I promised a GDP growth rate of 5.5% in Vision 2030 document. But as I have previously mentioned, that was a target, and it still remains a target which I am sure we'll attain in the coming years. We will attain in the coming years. In any way, Vision 2030 was not meant to be implemented in one mandate. For example, in the case of water supply, on a 24/7 basis, we all know that it cannot be realized in one term because of the magnitude of the works required to replace all the rotten pipes by new ones. But we have progressed. And as the Prime Minister indicated already, 440 kilometers of these pipes have already been replaced so far, and in many regions there has been significant improvement in water supply. What did the Labour PMSD governments do to replace rotten, old and defective pipes? Nothing. They did not bother to care for water supply. Madam Speaker, I also wish to highlight that the economic miracle of the 80s was not achieved in one term. It took us a little more than 2 terms. So I say have patience. Madam Speaker, coming back to GDP growth, I wish to refresh the memory of Honorable Mohammed and refer him to the sweeping statement made in June 2008 by the then Minister of Finance, who announced a GDP growth rate of 6.5% to 7% in his summing up speech on the 2008-2009 budget. This turned out to be a big bluff, with actual growth rate reaching only 3.4%. We all remember the big misleading terms like green shoots, early harvest, bumper crop, robust growth that were used by the then minister with the intent of demonstrating that his so-called reforms were yielding fabulous results. That nothing fabulous happened In reality, the then government delivered absolute poverty and a gloomy economic situation. With regard to public debt, Madam Speaker, there have been concerns raised in the House and in some quarters. Had we borrowed to finance recurrent expenditure, I would have also been worried. But when we have been borrowing to invest in projects that will define the future of the country and bring more wealth to the nation, I do not think that should be a problem. Obviously, we cannot go beyond a certain limit, but that is not a reason to dramatize the situation. This government is conscious of its responsibilities. That is the reason why the Prime Minister announced a new target for public debt level in 2020. I will come later to the question relating to using the reserves at the Bank of Mauritius to pay public debt in advance. But before that, I would like to ask a simple question to honorable members on the other side of the House. What would have happened to public debt had the Labour-MMM alliance won the last general election? And had they borrowed $830 million to finance a light rail project of the Ramgoolam regime? I would wish they answer me that, and I said it before and I repeat it today, they would have put a burden of 37 billion rupees on the head of each and every citizen of this country if we add up interest on the 15-year loan and provide the currency fluctuation that was the crime they were prepared to commit against the population. And they dare now to show fingers at us. Madam Speaker, for the Metro Express project we have received grant of nearly 10 billion rupees from India, and the remaining 8.8 billion is being financed through an Indian line of credit at very favorable terms. All in all, providing for interest and currency fluctuations, the state will be liable for around 12 billion, 3 times less than the burden that Ramgoolam and PMSD wanted to impose on the nation. So, once again, I leave it to the population to judge who is responsible and who is not. Madam Speaker, concerning the proposed use of reserves of the Bank of Mauritius to reimburse public debt in advance, and as far as I remember, those public debts about which the Prime Minister spoke were debts left by the previous government. I fail to understand how that will put at stake our economy. Only lowly remunerated surpluses from the Special Reserves Fund would be eventually utilized to reimburse debts contracted in foreign countries that cost us a lot in terms of debt servicing. I do not see anything sinister in that. Nothing is being jeopardized, as the opposition wants us to believe. The reserves of the country are very comfortable, standing at 230 billion against 124 billion in 2014. So I don't see how there can be any risk for the operations of the Bank of Mauritius or for the stability of the Mauritian rupee. All the assurances have been given by the Prime Minister when he answered to the PNQ on this issue on Monday. Madam Speaker, how many times have we not heard members from the other side quoting other countries suggesting that we should do this, we should do that, because other countries are doing it. But in this case also, we know in other countries, they are borrowing. They are taking money from the BOM, from the central bank. But why, in this case, when we try to do what other countries are doing, we are blamed? By the way, Madam Speaker, we have to remind the nation that in December 2014, public debt had already reached 237.7 billion. This is what we inherited from the previous government, representing 60.6% of GDP. And as indicated by the Prime Minister, 97% of the debt in foreign currency that this government proposes to reimburse in advance had been, as I said before, contracted by the previous Labour PMSD governments. Madam Speaker, I would now wish to respond to some of the comments made on the other side. Frankly, having known some of the members since long, I am sad to see how obsessively negative they can be. Some find nothing good in this budget and dare to give us lessons. I just want to remind them that in 2005, when my friend Béranger was Prime Minister, he gave to himself a certificate of utter failure when he stated that the country was in a situation of l'état d'urgence économique. Well, he might argue that the then Minister of Finance was Praveen Jagnnath. But at that time, the MMM was presenting Praveen Jagnnath as Chirag. Oh, I see. Oh, it's a Hindi word. Ah, Chirag. A rising star. And when Praveen presented his first budget in 2004, my good friend Béranger stated that it was a coup d'essai, a coup de maître. Well, I tried to convince these people on the other side who do not see beyond their nose. This is how Honorable Béranger and the MM acted then. For them, it is a tale of permanent double language and betrayal. The people out there know what to expect from them. Now this morning, hearing Honorable Béranger citing figures from his own mind as regards economic fundamentals, it is clear that he has not changed. Prophète de malheur he has been, and prophète de malheur he still is. But official statistics prove him wrong. The country has not waited for him to move ahead on the right track. Yes, the country is on the right track, and the people know it. I must also point out that planters have always benefited from our attention at all times. And when we have been in government, we have never fooled them, unlike others, who have always privileged the sugar magnates. Giving 25,000 rupees per ton to small sugarcane planters, producing up to 60 tons of sugar, is our acte de foi in them. They deserve it in this difficult time, and saying that this measure will affect the population. Alleged increase in electricity prices is an insult to them. Honorable Béranger will have to bear the responsibility for such insult. Now, on the midpoint issue, we have seen how low members on the other side, including Honorable Tim, Honorable Ramphal, Balamudi, how low they can stoop. Honestly, I could not imagine that the whole country knows that the Prime Minister has been cleared both by the Supreme Court and the Privy Council. They say that property was valued at 75 million rupees, and it was doubled, 144 million rupees, as if it was a gift to the owners. Well, that is most unfair. Because the truth is, everybody knows, that the first officer who valued the property was a lady who did not care to enter the premises. She stood outside and estimated the property, valuing 75 million rupees. Of course, this was not acceptable to the owners because there were lots of valuable assets that were to be found inside the building. Inside, there were 3 operating theaters, equipment for dialysis, equipment for radiology, and many other modern equipments that were necessary to carry out medical tests and closely monitor patients. There were also full-fledged inpatient wards. These assets were taken on board by the second valuer, and that explains how the valuation of the midpoint property increased to 144 million. There is nothing sinister or scandalous in that. Honorable Tim needs to know that a mediclinic, much less smaller and less equipped than midpoint, that was constructed in Glenvale at that time, cost almost 100 million rupees. What makes me sad, Madam Speaker, that I am aware. Honorable Béranger was aware of the whole truth as a complete dossier on the matter was forwarded to him when we were in the Demake Alliance. It is very sad that today he uses his immunity in the House to attack the integrity of the Prime Minister. As for Honorable Utim, I always thought he was someone who was mindful of his words. But I can only conclude now that for him also, only demagogy and hatred matter, the population will be the best judge. But once more, I wish to affirm that the midpoint case was politically concocted from the very beginning. From my experience as a barrister, I always stated, after studying the case, that there was no case against the Prime Minister. And finally, both the Supreme Court and the Privy Council proved me right. Madam Speaker, the rumbles of the opposition will not prevent the country from moving ahead. Definitely, Mauritius is progressing and not receding as members of the opposition want to make the nation believe. For me, there is a complete dissonance between the high appreciation of the budget by a majority of the population and the vitriolic diatribe of the members of the opposition. These members and their trumpet blowers have chosen to drown themselves in the apocalyptic seas of utter demagogy. It is their choice, and that will not prevent us in government to assume our responsibilities. Madam Speaker, often law and order issues are raised in this august assembly, and some members try to darken the situation in an alarmist manner. I again seize this opportunity of these debates to reassure the nation that safety and security prevail in our country. The government is sparing no effort to give the required means to the Mauritius Police Force to enhance its operational capability. Thanks to that, targeted actions have been implemented forcefully. The Mauritius Police Force has been building capacity, sensitizing the public, and leveraging on new technology to fulfill its mission. Some key initiatives in the outgoing financial year are as follows. A new Mauritian model of community policing has been launched. Special anti-robbery squads have been set up for the constant monitoring of the suspicious movement of habitual and prolific offenders. Police visibility at identified strategic locations, island-wide, has been enhanced, and the concept of hotspot policing introduced. A drone team has been created to increase surveillance and support targeted operations. A common platform has been set up for information sharing between the police and private security companies for launching of targeted actions. A partnership has been sealed between the police and key stakeholders such as the Mauritius Chamber of Commerce, the Bank of Mauritius, ICAC, FIU, and the MRA for combating financial crimes. The design and construction of a police academy is on course, with the signing of a project management consultancy contract on 11th April 2019 between the Government of Mauritius and the NBCC India Limited. The extension of Saint-Pierre Police Station and construction of a new police station at Kandiad have been completed. Works in relation to a new police station at Pamplemousses have been completed at almost 80%. 488 new police constables have been enlisted, 391 male and 97 female. 64,635 contraventions have been established by the traffic police for exceeding speed limits, 31,344 by fixed speed detector cameras, and 33,291 by handle speed detector cameras. 1,540 sensitization campaigns targeting 82,649 persons, including students, were carried out by the police with regards to crime prevention, road safety, drugs-related offences, domestic violence, juvenile offenders, child protection, and community policing. 1,070 police officers attended different courses, workshops, and training covering police integrity, criminal investigation, handling of new multimedia radio, self-care, and counseling skills, substance abuse prevention, gender concept, and presentation skills. National Coast Guard posts and vehicles have been equipped with a tsunami warning system. And above all, Madam Speaker, the Safe City project is being implemented. As at now 976 intelligent video surveillance cameras out of a total of 4,000 have been installed over 672 sites. This project is expected to increase crime detection capabilities, help to reduce the occurrence of crime, fight drug trafficking, and decrease the number of road accidents. Despite the unwarranted criticism of the opposition, I am confident that the challenges we are facing on the security and safety front can best be met through the use of technology. Singapore, which has one of the lowest crime rates in the world, is a vivid example. Madam Speaker, it is worth highlighting that the crime rate, excluding drugs, for the island of Mauritius has decreased from 4.9 per thousand population in 2016 to 4.3 in 2018. This is testimony to the progress we are making. Our aim is highlighted in the budget documents, is to bring, as highlighted in the budget document, is to bring the crime rate further down to less than 4%. Madam Speaker, our resolve to fight the drug scourge has remained unabated. The continuous detection of drug cases during recent months provides concrete evidence of our efforts. From July 2018 to date, illicit drugs for estimated total market value of 2.1 billion rupees have been seized by the anti-drug and smuggling unit. With a view to foster a multi-sectoral approach in the fight against drugs and HIV, a high-level Drugs and HIV Council under the chair of the Prime Minister has been set up in December 2018 to oversee the implementation of the National Drug Control Master Plan 2018-2020, which was commissioned by my ministry. Also, a National Drug Secretariat has been set up as an apex body to plan, coordinate, oversee, monitor, and evaluate all drug control-related policies, programs, and interventions to achieve greater coherence, results, and impact. Moreover, recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry on Drugs are being assessed and taken on board by respective concerned agencies. At the level of the prison service, after the ban imposed on telecommunications equipment, all our prisons are tobacco-free since 1st February 2019. Enforcement has been enhanced through drone and CCTV surveillance. Sophisticated jammers will be installed to disrupt any communication using mobile phone. A buffer zone of 50 meters will be created around the security perimeter wall at Melrose Prison to avoid pelting of prohibited articles. The Reform Institutions Act will be amended to include murder as a category not to be eligible for remission or release on parole. Moreover, 896 prison officers have undergone training at the prison training school. New programs have been implemented to better rehabilitate detainees. And 348 detainees have followed accredited vocational and educational programs, including primary school achievement certificate, music and distance learning courses through the Open University of Mauritius. Madam Speaker, as far as the Department for Continental Self, Maritime Zones Administration, and Exploration is concerned, it is actively pursuing its mission to allow Mauritius to fully develop the potential of its maritime zones. Following the conferment on Mauritius and Seychelles of a joint jurisdiction of an area of extended continental shelf of about 400,000 square kilometers, a submission has been made to the United Nations Commission on the limits of the continental shelf for an extended continental shelf in the region of Rodrigues. Moreover, in the light of the advisory opinion delivered by the International Court of Justice on 25 February 2019, whereby the court considered that the Chagos Archipelago had been unlawfully detached from Mauritius by the UK, a submission for an extended continental shelf of about 175,000 square kilometers in the southern Chagos region was lodged with UNCLCS on 26 March 2019. Mauritius will prepare a technical and scientific presentation to the United Nations to justify its claims over the extended continental shelf in August next, in line with the rules of the UNCLCS. I also wish to inform the House that with regards to exploration service for hydrocarbon within the EEZ of Mauritius, a request for proposal has been launched for the conduct of multi-client seismic surveys that will enable the collection of geophysical data of the Earth's crust and provide an evaluation of oil and gas prospects. Madam Speaker, our resolve to develop Rodrigues is once more demonstrated in the 2019-2020 budget with enhanced support to sustain the island's tourism sector through the special Rodrigues holiday package, a new housing scheme, and provisions for further improving the utilities network. Furthermore, the subsidies under the Rodrigues subsidy account have been increased from 158 million to 197 million to maintain the prices of petroleum products, rice, flour, and cement in Rodrigues at par with those prevailing in Mauritius. I wish also to inform the House that one rescue boat has been commissioned for Rodrigues Police on 14 February 2019 for rapid intervention at sea. Projects that are high on the Rodrigues agenda are the construction of a new runway at Glencoe Airport and the setting up of a technology park to promote entrepreneurship and employment in the field of ICT. Madam Speaker, it is with pride and the sentiment of devoir accompli that I will now speak on our battle to exercise our sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago. By the grace of God, the blessings of the population, I made the main oral submission before the International Court of Justice. The advisory opinion that was delivered by the court on 25 February 2019 was clear and unequivocal. It confirmed our long-standing position that Chagos Archipelago is and has always formed an integral part of the territory of Mauritius. I'm glad that the Prime Minister spearheaded a resounding victory for Mauritius at the United Nations on 22nd May 2019, when the resolution to give effect to the ICJ's advisory opinion was voted by an overwhelming majority of 116 against 6. As a nation, we need to stand firm and united in this Chagos battle. Despite the defiant position of the UK and its reluctance to abide by the advisory opinion of the ICJ and the UN resolution, we need to remain resolute and steadfast as we pursue our mission to complete the decolonization of our country. We need to support the Prime Minister with his new initiatives to make the UK change its stance in order to bring an early end to its illegal administration of the Chagos archipelago. Government has pledged to implement a program of resettlement in the Chagos archipelago. In this regard, we need to appreciate and understand the signal being given through the budget when the Prime Minister announced a special provision of 50 million rupees for meeting inter alia expenses relating to resettlement in the Chagos archipelago. This demonstrates our renewed commitment towards our sisters and brothers of Chagosian origin. The Prime Minister is going still further by proposing to annex the Chagos archipelago to constituency number 1, Grand River Northwest and Port Louis West. And today itself, we welcomed the new Air Mauritius A330neo aircraft named Chagos Archipelago, which will convey wherever it flies to our message that the Chagos Archipelago is proudly Mauritian. Madam Speaker, as we speak of patriotism and national solidarity on the Chagos issue, it is with sadness that I witness the members of the opposition, particularly Honorable Béranger, remaining stoic when the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance was mentioning in his budget speech how it was a special day for Mauritius when the ICJ ruled in favor of the Mauritius, and how a new milestone was reached with the adoption of the resolution at the UN on 22nd May this year. I believe that attitude again speaks volume of the man's character. It leads me to conclude that either Honorable Béranger is not happy about the outcome registered, both at the ICJ and at the United Nations, or his ego overrides his thinking. Anyway, we know that Honorable Béranger was of the view that we were not going to secure 10 votes at the time the first resolution was presented at the United Nations in my presence. When the Prime Minister was going to the United Nations for the second resolution, he commented at a press conference that he feared lobbying was not being done properly and that he doubted about the outcome of the vote. But he was proved wrong, and totally wrong, by the overwhelming votes in favor of Mauritius in both occasions. That also is history, Madam Speaker. I have always believed that one's ego cannot override one's patriotism and duty towards the motherland. The attitude of Honorable Béranger and of all the members of the opposition is unacceptable and has to be condemned. Likewise, their silence when the Prime Minister announced a public holiday on 9 September for the visit of His Holiness the Pope is condemnable. The people out there have taken good note. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I shall conclude by saying that the country is definitely in good and safe hands. We are progressing under the wise stewardship of the Prime Minister. With the experience I have acquired in politics and statesmanship, I am fully confident that no responsible Mauritian would wish to embark upon any new adventure with dishonored and filthy politicians who had brought this country to the brink of catastrophe each and every time they reigned mercilessly. We simply cannot allow those politicians to come back and destroy what we have strived to achieve despite the horrific legacy they left. And today, the former Prime Minister has got the guts to say that this whole process of going to the United Nations about Chagos Archipelago was started by him. What a shame. In any way, I reiterate my pledge to be on the terrain for the next general elections alongside the population, to fight the forces of evil that would try to mislead, divide, and put at stake the progress we have achieved together as a nation. Madam Speaker, the 2019-20 budget is about pursuing the national and territorial development agenda that carries at its heart innovation, technology-driven initiatives, modernization, and inclusiveness. It characterizes a strong leadership with a clear vision. It is about making Mauritius shine again as a respected and recognized achiever. It is about propelling further our country towards the selective lead of high-income economies. With these words, Madam Speaker, I congratulate again the Honourable Prime Minister and wish him well in steering the Republic of Mauritius towards more glory. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
On behalf of the people of Oryx, I would like to raise a point of appreciation to say thank you to Senator Jacknut for what he's done.
There are procedures in the House. There are procedures in the House, and I don't think that I can depart from the procedures to allow you to make a statement right now. I am really sorry. You will have some other opportunity to do that.